Hello and welcome to the Fuji Speedway, where F1 comes back to the great circuit in Japan for the 5th time in its history. Of course, back in the 1970s, back in the early 2000s, or actually mid-2000s, late 2000s actually. And yeah, back now in 2026 for the Japanese Grand Prix. First time we've come to this country since Autopolis last year in a race set on pole by Yuki Tsunoda, the home driver, when he was back in AlphaTauri. And then won by Liam Lawson in the Red Bull. Now it's swapped, it's not really swapped around actually. Lawson in the V-carb now, and pole position, Oscar Piastri. He's had a poor start to the season. Did he get a podium in China? I can't remember if he did. I'm an idiot. Yeah, we have got your grid set for tomorrow afternoon technically. 12 PM lights out. The start was moved up by 2 hours. That's because they had to organise Super Formula Lights races around it, so they thought, you know what, instead of having two Super Formula Lights races back to back really close, we'd have them either side of the Grand Prix. So the 12 PM lights out tomorrow, instead of what was I think going to be 2 PM lights out. Of course, clocks go back as well, just make it quite confusing over in the UK side of things. Anyway, your grid for the Japanese Grand Prix, and at the back it's Drogovic, back after a week. He was in Formula E last weekend, kind of successful Madrid Prix. He was, of course, being replaced by Zhou Guanyu last week, who had an interesting race. Talk about him once we get to the other Cadillac. Then it's the two Haas cars with Ocon and Doohan, 21st and 22nd. Then it's Vesti, who was at IMSA. I think he got a third. One of the Cadillacs got a third last week. I don't know exactly who it was. Yeah, he's in 19th place. Of course, the two Cadillacs last week were driven by Herta and Zhou. Yeah, the less said about that, the better, because they basically used that weekend as a test session. Anyway, then we got Sainz and Williams. I'm surprised that he's so far back. I mean, he was quite poor in qualifying last year, but he's been quite well recently. Then it's Lawson, Colapinto, that engine noise, by the way. Colapinto down in 16th, that's a big surprise considering where he was last week. Then it's Leclerc, another surprise, be so far back. Bortoleto, Albon, Maloney, he's back after missing a race. Kind of miserable Formula E Madrid Prix. Because he had to serve a drive-through right at the start. I'm not sure why. It's one of those weird Formula E issues. Anyway, then we've got Pourchaire, Hadjar, Antonelli, Sonoda. The first time he's not been on pole this season. He got pole in the first 3 rounds, but now he's down in 8th place at his home race of all the races that have that streak ended. Then it's Verstappen in 7th, Gasly in 6th, Russell in 5th, Behrman in 4th, Button 3rd. Norris 3rd, Jack Crawford, what a lap from him to go 2nd, and then Oscar Piastri, as I said, your pole sitter for the Japanese Grand Prix. So let's have a look at his pole lap then. Let's have a look. Was it the very first lap? I think it was. Yeah, it was his very... Actually, no, it wasn't his very first lap. Wait, no. No, it was his first lap. I'm being an idiot. And let's go on board then. Let me get the track map up. Also, technically, Herta did race last week as well at IMSA, but we don't talk about that. Anyway, down the front straight, out of Panasonic, turn 16, and it's one of the longest front straights we'll have in the calendar this year. It's very long. Before we go to the first corner, a sharp right-hand hairpin before turn 2 for the flat-out right-hand kink on the exit towards turn 3. Coca-Cola. It's a weird kind of 90-degree left-hander, but it's quite fast as well. You can carry quite a lot of speed through it. Then we've got turn 4 and 5, 100R. Not quite 130R, but it's 100R. It's actually getting held up by one of the Cadillacs, Felipe Drugovich. As we go through turn 6 and 7, the hairpin. For turn 8, turn 9, 2 flat out corners, 9 called 300R. Before turn 10, 11, 12, the Dunlop section. In fact, I think only this corner is Dunlop. We've got turn 11, 10, 11, and then 12, the exit. Before 13, called 13th, very nicely named. And then 14 and 15 called Nets. Not sure what that's named after. Before Panasonic, turn 16, the final corner. And that is a lap. Your pole lap, he actually held up twice, got held up by Ocon as well in the Haas. Quite a lot, so he had a very good lap, did Piastri. Anyway, down the front straight, Start finish line is actually very far at the end of the track. I'm assuming he's got DRS open. Ocon actually hasn't there. Has he got DRS open? Yeah, he has got DRS open, of course. And that is a 1:22.045 from Oscar Piastri. So we'll be back, as I said, tomorrow, 12 p.m. lights out for the Japanese Grand Prix. We've had some rain already today. Thankfully, the track's dried up. And there is possibly some rain scheduled tomorrow as well. So we'll see what happens then. But for now, that is it for qualifying. Goodbye.